the future generation workforce are expecting your company to be more environmental friendly as they look after their own future and the generational outcome that they are going to live on this planet in a much better shape, right? They do kind of believe that the past generation was not like kind of well aware enough, and the future generation like Gen Xers and above, which is millennials and Gen Z, are expecting companies to be more sustainably aware. And one of the reasons why kind of I wanted to kind of start diving into an interest and bring forward some of the very uh, outstanding agenda that I wanted to spill here in front of you from a Microsoft perspective. What sustainability is and what are experience that we can outline, which you can take an advantage of it, and the battlefield that we are kind of dealing with, challenges that we are going through, and how we are going to be changing the game in upcoming time. It's not going to be a just 1 or 2 or 3 year game. It's going to be long tenure that we have to be all committed towards and continue to thrive in this subject so that we can kind of take an advantage of the great planet to leave behind for our generations to come and cherish, right? So we are going to be covering some of the sustainability and its importance, challenge that we are facing today and going to be faced for upcoming time, where how we can change the game. Second would be a Microsoft's own journey on sustainability, and the last one would be the commitment Microsoft has made and the initiatives that Microsoft is taking in order to kind of take a step forward towards bringing environmentally betterment for our planet. And finally, we'll also touch base on some of the outcome that we are going through, like as a change in a bit here. So the challenge that we all are having is not small, right? The world is facing an unprecedented challenge of simultaneously mitigating and adapting to challenging climates, ensuring resilient water supply, sustainability feeding a human population, rapidly growing to 10 billion mark, uh, and it's stemming a catastrophic and ongoing loss of biodiversity and ecosystems. There has now emerged an overwhelming scientific consensus that world's temperature is rising since the Industrial Revolution and will soon hit a 1.5 degree mark unless we do some dramatic actions in order to address the climate change. And all these facts and figures are observed by NASA, and they have extensive research paper that they have outlined back in 2018. And what they have highlighted as an outcome, that continuously we have 18 of the warmest year over year among the last 19 years. And that's the observation. It's like 19 years is not a small period to think about. It's pretty extensive research and the data that NASA has collected and they have outlined. As a result of it, there are some evident issues that national oceanic and the environmental agency that they have outlined. The overall results are going to be driving us towards very negative sentiments. We are seeing that results of the climate change through the catastrophic storms and things that we handle. But besides that, though, in form of a number, if we really look at it, as a scientific community, they have concluded that human activity have released more than 2 trillion metric ton of greenhouse gas into the Earth's atmosphere since the start of the first industrial revolution, which is in mid 1700s. So it's a couple of centuries worth of time where we have increased the greenhouse gas, and it's exponentially increasing in late last years. Because now, are we at the tipping point of things where things are irreversible? We don't know that yet, but that's the scientific evidence that we have found. A quarter of planet species are threatened with the extinction, and that's another observation that scientific community have made. Even if we look at it, every year more than 55 billion ton of waste are produced annually worldwide, And that waste is a byproduct of our daily lives and every sector of the world's economies that uh, generate the trash in terms of like discarded pollutes and clogs the waterways, all sorts of that pain that we are going to go through. And last but not least, the 2 billion people lacks access to the safe drinking water. We that number is rising like quite astonishingly high in a short duration, and that's something is also things to worry about. In a nutshell, what I want to say that this challenge is a planet-sized challenge. It's not just like the one person's challenge. It's like the everyone who lives and consumes this planet. They all are going to face these consequences coming out of these challenges. So in order to address that, the powerhouse, we call it the C-suite of the corporates who are empowered enough to do something, they have started taking a leap bound steps and started committing environmental or the climate friendly policies, and they have the initiatives in the CEO goals. And if we really look at it, each and every company, and the data says that out of 1,000 CEO survey that Forbes did, 92% CEO have some type of sustainability in their goal, and they have out of that 88% have associated their pay performance pay in line with the sustainability initiatives that they would kind of incorporate in their world. The Coke is working on a water improvements, and the auto industry is kind of coming up with their own ways of contributing to the climate, but every CEO that are committed to drive some type of sustainability initiatives in their work. So Microsoft has their own approach to think about it, and that sustainability at Microsoft has evolved from an operational only focus to get into the products and services, and also now touching up the customer and partners driven policies such a way, and finally it's involving every employees. One of the reasons why I'm talking to you today is out of my personal passion, but at the same time the education and the awareness that Microsoft has brought forward to us, and reason why I'm speaking to you in a much effective manner today. And I have a lot more to share about our journey itself, right? When we look at the Microsoft journey and the commitment that we Microsoft made it in the year 2020, we had the decade-long journey to even go drive some of these initiatives that we kind of exhibit today. It started back in 2009 when the first carbon emission reduction goal was put forward by the CEO at that time. And there was not much done since 2009 to 2012, but in 2012 we kind of implemented a carbon neutral goal, and then also in order to address that goal we started a carbon tax, and I will explain that carbon tax in a minute here, but is what something the first initiative taken. Until then it was just the research being made, what can be done, what could be done, and so forth. Since then, every year we have been making some headways, and we started working on our first project to drive a smart building deployment and smart building based solution deployment, partnering with the renewable energy company PPA and so forth. Since then, we started generating lots of evidences, and we started accomplishing some of the goal, and we kind of introduced first campus in San Jose, which is kind of zero waste campus we call it, and also we started to drive some of the aggressive goals in 2016 and committed to have the 60% renewable energy purchased by 2020. And today we gladly can say that we are a little bit ahead, because the goal was made 60%. We were about 68% into a renewable energy purchase, with the help of all the innovation that is taking place in through all the energy companies. Moving on from that, we also launched the AI for Earth program. Essentially, it's quite crucial and important to think about it when it comes to deal with the climate and the planet-sized challenge. We need data from all over the globe. And when we kind of taken advantage of the cloud platform, we started thinking about it, how we can make this data available for the larger community, and the open sourcing some of the data so that the scientists can perform the effective research out of it. And finally, we also started thinking about converting our data centers to gold LEED certification. And that's quite important to think about it. When we made that goal in 2017, LEED certification is quite extensively defined process. And when the data center are the energy hawk, they are like consuming a lot of energy, and also cooling and power depends on some of the diesel generators and all. It's quite difficult to get that type of certification. So the innovation that we started within Microsoft have actually made us enable go for the LEED certification for data centers. And evidently, when you are consuming the Azure cloud, you are taking direct advantage of some of this, and I will explain you how that is, how you can report back your market share in terms of the climate efficiency and all. I'll explain you through the sustainability. We call it an emission impact dashboard, but it's essentially introduced originally as a sustainability calculator. So I will explain you that too. Moving on from that, in 2018, we kind of started partnering with the supplier who are in a carbon reduction programs. And we also started venturing in with the universities to do some extensive research around how can we make the environment and air carbon free. In 2019, we have implemented the carbon tax rigor and the entire organization, and also started to improve some of the goals, where how can we kind of go above and beyond what we have achieved so far. And finally, in 2020, we made publicly announced goals that you can see here, that we want to go carbon negative by 2030, which means that not only we want to be a carbon neutral, or the whatever amount of carbon we generate, but then we want to remove more carbon out of the environment than we perhaps generate. We also made another commitment, is that we want to become carbon negative by 2050 in terms of historically carbon. We want to remove carbon that was historically generated by Microsoft by 2050. We also made a goal of consuming 100% renewable energy by 2025. So imagine the data centers that Microsoft operates running completely on 100% renewable energy by 2025. It's quite aggressive goal when we look at the technologies available at our hand and so forth. We want to also make our goal around waste by not generating the landfillable waste by 2030 to go make it to zero. Now, Microsoft, not many people are seeing, but we also have the business around the devices and the packages that needs to be built around those devices and the software that we need to ship. All of those actually does consume some type of carbon or the landfill waste, and we are converting all of that to go become the zero landfill waste bulk, right? And that's what something that want to focus on it. In a nutshell, the story of sustainability in many ways begin with the carbon. We set our first carbon target in 2009 and stepped up into 2012 with a commitment to be carbon neutral, and implemented $15 per metric ton carbon tax. All of those initiatives helped us fund some of the initiatives that we wanted to take an advantage of it. So that $15 a ton carbon tax, think about it, that our employees, when they travel for conference, or when they travel to meet the customers by driving car, there is a X number of data that we captured behind the scene through an activity that we track behind. Data and AI tools that helped us define some of that, and based upon that, we kind of came up with the $15 a ton tax that will apply on the departments, and that tax actually helped us drive certain funding certain projects that can be helped towards the sustainability. So while CEOs and the executives are committed to towards sustainability and help like society improve sustainability in form of an environment. We have a ways, and we can find a ways to actually come up with that dollar figures to help fund the project. And as a part of it, basically, we have also started taking initiatives on capturing data, how and where we are actually going to purchase the renewable energy. So that's the data that we showed so far, right? So we made 60% goal by 2020, but by 2020 we were at 62% mark in order to get the renewable energy purchase. And that's how we started to make an aggressive goal to reach 100%. This last leg is quite difficult for us to think about it, but there are ways we are going to achieve that goal. So $15 tax, when we are coming up with the per ton tax that we will apply to all the departments, we created that climate innovation fund out of that money. And Microsoft committed a $1 billion fund that goes towards this climate innovation. And the investment that we are making around the climate impact, which means that meaningful, measurable climate solutions by 2030. So are we there? Perhaps no, we don't, because there are so much of innovation that's taking place in this field. We are experimenting so many ideas and exploratory partnering with the several of the nonprofit organization and trying to play the role in the battlefield of this climate fighting, right? So the fund objective is clear that we have it. It just one is to innovate new technologies, and second is to accelerate existing technologies. So innovate new technologies, not many people are aware, but there are several videos around YouTube. You will find the project Natic that we had it, which means that we want to submerge data center for the life of 5 to perhaps 10 years and make a use of a natural water bodies, where we found it more than 70+% lives near the large water bodies in the world, and we could place those data centers very close to those proximity of those people, and by doing the submerging of data centers. We ran a project Natic with the one capsule under sea for over 5 year period, and now we will be dropping the cluster of those tubes underneath that. So it's a one initiative, but not alone that. We have initiatives around the storage. You can imagine the petabytes worth of storage that needs to be archived goes on a disk. Now we are looking for a ways to store that data for a longer duration on a glass, and you can see several videos on YouTube that you can find how that glass storage is making more viable solution for the long-term archive. And we do have a petabytes worth of archive. Think about all the movies library that we have it, or maybe the content that news media has it, or perhaps some of the historically scientific data that we have captured. All of the data is the immense amount of data that stays left behind untouched, and those are the ideal candidate to go on the glass storage. So while we put that data on the glass, there are innovation that's happening on a retrieval process. How fast we can retrieve data out of the glass and also make it available across the globe. Many of this innovation is happening within Microsoft, but then Microsoft is also funding new technologies to say how we can clean certain rivers and perhaps oceans and so forth, and we are funding towards that type of technology as well. But essentially, all this innovation and the accelerating technology, we depend on this 4 pillar. It has to be around the carbon, it has to be around waste, it has to be around water, and it has to be around ecosystems. So these are the 4 pillars that our innovation fund, climate innovation fund, get utilized towards. And when we look at all this like 4 pillars, we also have categorized the investment prioritization principles. The climate impact would be number 1, underfunded market are the second, climate equity is the third, and the shared alignment is the fourth. So if there is an innovation that happens which can help generate the renewable energy, it applies into all the 4 categories, and something that we kind of think that as a number 1 priority to think about it. And finally, we are also using that fund towards target technologies and solution creation. Like we have now something coming up called the Cloud for Sustainability, and that is going to be offered as a part of it. The open data ecosystem that we have it, we are going to bring innovations around that, how we can make this data available using the confidential computing and so forth. And finally, the natural resource optimization is another one. So, in a nutshell, these are the areas that we are using our fund towards. But then we are also having the internal alignment happening, right? So, we have multiple of new campuses on the rise, like new data center build out, or perhaps the Redmond campus, or perhaps the Silicon Valley campus that we build out. We have this goal in prioritization, right? So we have a zero carbon campus that are in pilot. We are converting, there are bus system in our campuses utilized that's completely converted to become an electric fleet. And finally, the energy reduction goals that we have it in every offices and so forth, where we work with our landlords to make sure that they are the LEED certification compliant. And not only that, we have all the LED lights and so forth, where it's much better energy efficient solutions being implemented in the offices too, including the coffee machine and the cooling machines for the beverages. So a lot of these things are being considered. Secondly, that we have like the large campuses that we own, Johannesburg, Beijing, Hyderabad, and also the one in the Tel Aviv, Israel. They are like the on-site water collection and recycling plant that goes into it. So how we are actually leveraging some of this technology to our own advantages, while we are actually fueling some of the sustainability goal. The zero waste campuses are under play. We have one campus on the Puget Sound facility that is certified, and we are also looking for more ways. One of the simple example I wanted to call out is the plastic-free visitors badge. It's a very innovative way to think about it. When we have the RFID-based badges, it requires a longer tenure of life, but we don't use the plastic in it. We use papers and the enforced papers to be utilized, and along with some of the composite values that goes to build that badges. When we look at the 100,000 people across the globe, it's a lot of badges to think about it. When we look at the grand ramification of scale, it's not a whole lot, but every little place where we could improve those, bring improvements of that. Finally, the ecosystem is also a key. Microsoft has the product offering called FarmBits, and that FarmBits helps the technology infused agricultural processes, right? And so one of the way to look at it. But then we also have Azure Arc and Edge product set that helps lots of organization. They are doing the research at distance where they might not have the network connectivity and so forth, and we have a lot of innovation that happens from technology side. But then also we are kind of giving those technology to those research companies to utilize those technology and make a better research outcome in line of an ecosystem. While we think in this manner, we also have the play in environmental science, like I was mentioning to you about the FarmBit. Then the biggest value prop that we Microsoft are investing in is the AI for Earth, which is often reflected by the planetarily computed, and which means that there are the temperature and the climate data captured across the globe by the variety of countries and all the different organizations. They kind of share their data over the planetary computers that we call AI for Earth. They consume data from there to do some analysis and come up with some solutions. We are kind of sharing across the different agencies so that the space data can also be captured within that. And finally, our focus is around monitoring and capturing data, modeling and giving some of the templates back to it, and finally manage certain business line like energy production and so forth, such a way, in a smart way, where it can be much effective in terms of meeting the human life. And last but not least is the computer science. It's completely a research oriented arm where we are generating an ideas through by sharing data with other people. And about total 50 million worth of investment we made with 5-year commitment towards the this type of initiatives, and it looks pretty small, but then it brings the big and large results out of it. Not only that, but being an industry leader, one of the largest market cap company, we are also using our voice to speak out on sustainability policies, where we are talking on climate conferences, we are talking to the ecosystems and helping drive some of the policies around the ecosystem in the local as well as the global governments. Also around the waste and water policies that we kind of influence into it, and it's all data driven output that we kind of contribute towards, and that's what something we quite extensively get heavily involved as well. Not only that, we started to make a headway engaging all the employees because of workforce over 100,000 employees, and also including partner ecosystem. If we look at our overall impact, from the percentage wise, it's not huge, but the way we are empowering our customers, way we are empowering our partners, the way we are empowering our employees, that also makes a huge difference. And that's why we have a sustainability community, which I'm part of it. It's an employee-led community. We kind of socialize our thoughts, ideas, and also exchange our learning with other people to take an advantage of sustainability or the climate awareness among us, right? We have over 5,000 plus members across 100 plus countries, with over 30 plus regional chapters that actually also get tapped into certain government agencies as well. So quite extensive work that actually we do. And as a part of that chapters or the community work, we have regional chapters or action box. We do have the speaker series, which was something I'm kind of exhibiting right now. And finally, the global events that we run, including the hackathon. So we kind of are looking for ideas where if you as a company have an initiative, you can reach out to me and I can connect you with the right people where you can drive certain sustainability goals within your own company by partnering with us as well. Looking forward to it. Sincerely looking forward to it. And that's where I wanted to bring back our commitment, right? Again, carbon negative by 2030, water positive by 2030, zero waste by 2030. Most importantly, want to build a planetary computer where you all can be part of it as well. When we are looking at the carbon negative by 2030 or erase the footprint by 2050, what are we doing really around that areas, right? So ground of work is that the best, use the best available science by sharing data, take responsibility and literally improve the campuses and buildings by investing dollar into it. We fund $1 billion into the carbon reduction goal. So looking for ways to cut down some of the carbon emission generated by putting up certain technologies so that it can suck up the carbon from air. Renewable energy is another one, and so forth, right? When we are talking about the building a planetary computer, it think about the biodiversity, and think about like putting data and digital technology to work. We can't solve a problem that we don't fully understand, and that's why we will aggregate the environmental data from around the world and put it, computing it, and use machine learning like technology to work by building this planetary computer. Then next step is to empower customers around the world. One of the reasons why you are attending this conference is to have an evident interest and making sure that all of you take back certain type of actions to take it. And I'm going to expose some of the tool set that Microsoft has it, like a sustainability calculator and so forth, where you can start seeing how you can take an advantage of it, right? Similarly, in a zero waste, similarly in a water positive. Uh, in a nutshell, I wanted to ground some of the thought process here with the seven principle guide that we kind of took an advantage of it. Definitely grounding in science and math. There is it is not a rocket science here, but there are some evidences that our scientific community have captured. So taking advantage of that, taking responsibility for our footprint, like understand, make sure that you understand your sustainability contribution towards carbon or any other waste, and be responsible to avoid that. Like one of the example, Starbucks is coming up with a lead where there is no need of straw. And that's a big lift chain, right? The straws are one of the biggest landfill item because it cannot be recycled, and they are taking steps like that. So as a consumer, you want to be making sure that you are not asking for straw, and rather you are asking for a lead that can be used without straw. So that's one simple change that you can be exhibiting your responsibility towards. Investing in new solutions and technology is what something we are doing. You can consume those technology and you can be part of that journey as well. Empowering customers and partners around the world, we are continuously investing in this front, and we encourage you to do the same thing. Every supplier that you are consuming product from, make sure you ask certain questions to them, and probe that questions, what are their sustainability goals and how they are sustainably responsible, so that you are not basically consuming a product that are not sustainability aware. And ensuring effective transparency, the tool set that we can show back, right? So let's say if you are consuming data center on your own, there is an X number of energy waste, or maybe the X number of carbon waste through the cooling and power wastage that you are going through. But if you ended up using Azure through our ecosystem, our initiatives, our research, how you are going to save that dollar figure in terms of the sustainability aware, and we have a calculator for it. So we bring transparency through our tools, and you expect those tool set to be available, or the data to be available to you through your other suppliers as well. Well, then use your voice on a climate related public policies, right? Don't sit dark, don't sit quiet. It's your planet, it's your future generations planet, and it's the only planet we have. So we have to use our voice, and you can keep quiet, you can stay calm on these issues, or you can speak out, and we encourage you to use your voice towards the public policies. And finally, enlisting our employees, which means that we want to put those sustainable aware people in the front, and want them to take an advantage of this platforms like Angelbeat or maybe others, where you can speak out loud what you are doing about sustainability yourself. With that, we made some progress. It's not something the world is covered by the dark cloud. There is a silver lining ahead. We started to see some evident output, and the progress that we made it's quite astonishing and promising. In the space of carbon, we intend to be a carbon negative by 2030, but then we already have produced 1.3 million metric tons of carbon removal. So that's quite impressive. Nearly 20 water replenishment projects funded, and that are going to bring the results by 2030 or even before that, where we are producing more water than we consume. Then we also have avoided 60,000 metric tons worth of waste from landfill into recycling, and that's quite impressive as well. And we have about 10 petabyte worth of environmental data available at your consumption, and research that you wanted to perform. And not only that, right? We do have the bold statement from our chief officer around the climate change and the sustainable future. But I wanted to take a moment here, in the interest of time. What are the outcomes? I've been keep referring around the planetary insights or planetary computer or maybe the sustainability calculator. Wanted to showcase to you on some of this part, right? So we have an ecosystem in a cloud where we have started to build certain elements on a contributor side. So we have the list of companies and the things with their goals in our radar, where we can have the our platform offer to them, either in form of data collection or either in form of analysis or either in form of coming up with the insights and product improvements. So we do have the connects made with those customers who are already having the sustainability goals. Encouraging you, if you have any and want to reach out, happy to connect you with our sustainability team. Second, we do have the connects with the data scientists who are actually generating models around studying all the environmental data and also bring forward some of the insights at your consumption. We have app developers who are actually working on and developing certain products which are going to be consumed by logistic industries, uh, how they are actually bringing your Amazon packets from Amazon warehouse into your at your doorstep within a day, versus they are going to offer the Amazon delivery day, where within that neighborhood the truck comes in less frequently. So if you can wait for the product to arrive at your doorstep for additional 1 day, that can help towards the sustainability as well. And then applications are being developed to showcase how you are being more contributing towards the sustainability as well. Like that, we have several startups and companies. They are actually in a carbon elimination or finding new ways to generate the renewable energy out of it. Then we also have a consumers around that, where the educational institutes, universities, or maybe citizen scientists, they are consuming data and making use of it. Then we have a local governments, they are actually depending on some of the analysis and build the policies. Like let me take an example here. During the drought time, all the local governments were announcing the grass watering schedule, so that the grass does not actually die completely, or even it dry to the point where it can cause fire. But then also they were like water efficient in terms of meeting the village needs and so forth. So we have seen some of the evidence where local government took an advantage of data in that manner. We are definitely consumers in a policy and advocacy group. And finally, variety of businesses and industries, they are finding ways to save their operational cost by kind of reducing the uh, carbon footprint as well. When you as a customer consume Microsoft Cloud in terms of like efficient data center consumption, we have the tool set in a play which is more like a, we call it emission impact dashboard, but then it's also a sustainability calculator. We originally launched it, and it has a proper methodology to calculate towards your data center consumption. But then there is a detailed methodology that has been outlined here, where there is a scope one, which means that how you are improving a product by changing a bulb to become an energy efficient bulb. So instead of using the tungsten filament bulb or the halogen bulb, if you are changing that to LED, there is a direct impact into it, and that's a scope one activity. Then there is a second scope activity where you are consuming the carbon efficient supplier, and that's how you can get benefited with. And the last but not least is the recycling and the disposition of some of the goods, or maybe you are consuming certain services that are depending and they are also carbon efficient, such as United Airlines recently announced Eco Skies, which means that they are consuming the fuel that are like generating less number of less amount of carbon in the air by converting from kerosene to perhaps the petroleum based product and so forth. So it's still a fossil fuel, but then there is an improvement in engines where it can generate less greenhouse gas, right? So that goes in a scope number 3 indirect part, right? So these are the various scope. There is a detailed methodology outlined in here, aligned with the certain government standards and so forth. So it's not a fluff, it's very intense. and that's how you can perhaps outline. So let's say if you are basically consuming and hosting your application on Azure or the Microsoft Cloud, there is a way to think about it by looking into the dashboard where you have all the subscriptions that you can list it. It requires a Power BI license, Power BI Pro license to onboard. There is a billing rights that you needed on your subscription, and that's how you are going to consume this data. And it shows the historically when you are running your own data center with X number of servers in your own data centers, eventually you migrate into cloud or kind of start to leverage more cloud services. Microsoft can play back to you how much of the consumption you have reduced in terms of carbon emission. There is an emission details out there around like literally by the quarter usage and so forth. And most importantly, you can tune this model with your own data that you can depend on. Let's say if you are a carbon efficient data center today, you are purchasing already renewable energy in your data center by, let's say, 20% already, then this number will be different versus if you have the highly virtualized environment where you have efficiency scale you can change to high, and then you can see how much you are saving by consuming Azure product or Microsoft product in a Microsoft cloud. And that's the way you can kind of play back this number back to your CEOs or executives who is leading the helm on sustainable arm.